Hi guys! So, I was born in Crimea, where I spent the first 20 years of my life. Then I moved to St. Petersburg to study art and lived there for 11 years. After that, I spent 9 years in Mexico between Playa del Carmen and Cancun. Now I live in Atlanta area in the United States. Living in multiple cultures has been an incredible journey, one that has shaped me in ways no classroom ever could. I firmly believe that traveling and immersing yourself in different cultures teaches you skills that are rarely learned in school or university. It's a deeply transformative experience that goes beyond sightseeing. It reshapes how you think, communicate, and see the world. So in this video, I want to share with you the biggest lessons I've learned from living in multiple cultures. But before I dive in, if you enjoy content about travel, photography, creative adventures, and personal growth, please support my channel by subscribing. I have a goal of reaching 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year, and every subscription truly helps. Thank you. Now let's get into it. Perspective is everything. What's considered completely normal in one place might be totally unfamiliar or even strange in another. Living in different cultures teaches you that there is no single right way to do things, just different ways. And when you really start to embrace that, something amazing happens. You become more open-minded, more accepting, and way less judgmental. One of the funniest shifts in my perspective happened with superstitions. If you grew up in a Slavic culture like I did, you know that superstitions are a big deal. They are ingrained in everyday life. You don't even question them. One of them I grew up with was that if you leave your house but then realize you forgot something and you have to go back inside, you must look in the mirror and say hello, hello, hello 3 times before leaving again. If you don't, bad luck for the day. No exceptions. Now fast forward to my time living in Mexico. One day a friend and I were heading out when she suddenly remembered she forgot her sunglasses. As she turned back, I casually mentioned about this superstition. She looked at me and then burst out laughing. We ended up having a whole conversation about how different cultures hold on to completely different beliefs. Some serious, some completely ridiculous. That moment stuck with me. It was my second year living in Playa del Carmen, and that simple conversation made me ask myself, wait, so do superstitions only work in specific parts of the world? And if that's the case, are they even real? And just like that, years of unquestioned beliefs started to unravel. That conversation opened my eyes to how much we inherit from our culture without even realizing it. And candidly, it was liberating. So here's the thing, perspective is everything. The more cultures you experience, the more you realize that what feels like an absolute truth in one place might be completely meaningless in another. And once you let go of the idea that there is only one way to see the world, you start to live a whole lot freely. Adaptability is your superpower. Every culture moves at its own speed. It has different traditions, rhythms, and unspoken rules. Learning to adapt, whether it's to a new work culture, social norms, or even food, makes you more resilient and open-minded. One of the hardest things for me to adjust to in Mexico was slowing down. I've always been super active, constantly doing. But in Mexico, life flows at a different pace. I had to literally teach myself to slow down, Inhale, exhale, and just be. It wasn't easy, but over time I adapted. Then I moved to the Atlanta area in the United States, where the culture is the complete opposite. Here everything is fast, hyper efficient, and being busy is almost a status symbol and a badge of honor. It feels like so many people here wear exhaustion like a badge of honor, like their worth is measured by how busy they are and how little time they have for themselves. I struggled with that, I still struggle, and I don't think I even want to embrace that kind of non-stop hustle. But that's a conversation for another video. What I did learn from experiencing both extremes is this: you have to find the right balance for you. Culture might dictate a certain pace, but that doesn't mean you have to follow it blindly. Take the time to understand your own rhythm, your work, sleep, learn, and recharge cycles. It takes trial and error, but once you find that balance, everything just feels right. Material things matter less than experiences. When you move across countries, you quickly realize how little you actually need to be happy. The best memories don't come from the things you own. They come from experiences. When I moved to Cancun, everything I had fit in one red suitcase. That plus a backpack with my camera and a laptop. And you know what? That was more than enough. I wasn't focused on collecting stuff, I was focused on living. Now, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying money isn't important. I believe in balance in every part of life, including financial and spiritual. Money gives you security, access to healthcare, and the ability to live a comfortable life. But if all you do is work, save, and chase material things, what's the point? There is no fulfillment in that. Experiences, traveling, exploring, learning new things, that's what actually stays with you. 2013 was my big travel year, and during that time, possessions weren't my priority. Experiences were. I wasn't thinking about buying expensive things, I was thinking about where I would go next, what I would learn, and who I would meet. And it was one of the best years of my life so far. Fast forward 5 or 6 years, and yeah, I indulged in some fancy things. I worked hard, so I treated myself. And that's okay too. Again, it's about balance. But then when I moved to the US, I found myself shifting again. It wasn't about things, it was about experiences. New places, new cultures, new people. And that's when I realized at the end of the day, you don't remember the number of shoes you wore or gadgets and the number of cars you owned. You remember the experiences, sunsets you watched, the streets you wandered, the deep conversations with strangers who became friends. That's what makes life feel rich. Building a community. I learned the hard way that one of the best ways to feel at home in a new country is to create or join a community. Finding like-minded people makes the transition so much smoother and more fulfilling. But I'll be candid, I didn't do that right away. When I moved to Cancun, I struggled hard. The main reason, the language barrier. I spoke only very basic Spanish, and let me tell you, being an adult and not being able to properly express yourself is a huge confidence killer. It makes you feel small, disconnected, and at times completely isolated. And without even realizing it, I started hiding in my shell, avoiding situations where I'd feel uncomfortable, where I might stumble over my words or just feel out of place. It wasn't until 2 or 3 years into living in Mexico that something shifted. It was because of my work. Photography always has been my passion. By the way, if you are new to my channel, I'll drop a link below so you can check out my photography work. But my love for photography meant that I had to push myself out of my comfort zone. If I wanted to grow my photo business, I needed to talk to people, connect with clients, network, and make friends. And once I started doing that, something incredible happened. I finally started feeling at home. The truth is, no matter how beautiful a place is, if you don't have people around you, it will always feel temporary. Community is what turns a new place into home. So if you ever find yourself in a new country struggling to adapt, don't do what I did. Don't wait years to put yourself out there. Join a group, take a class, meet people. The sooner you do, the sooner you'll feel like you truly belong. You learn to trust yourself more. Every time you navigate a new city, figure out a foreign transport system, or handle an unexpected situation in a new country, you build confidence in yourself. You realize that no matter what happens, you can figure it out, and that's powerful. For me, learning Spanish wasn't something that happened in a classroom. It happened in real life. I picked up the language while running my business, taking public transport, ordering food at local spots, buying groceries, and even negotiating rent for an apartment. It wasn't perfect, but it worked. And that's the thing. Real-world experience is the best teacher. You don't need to speak perfectly. You just need to put yourself out there. The more you do, the more you trust yourself to handle whatever comes your way. And once you build that trust, it sticks with you, no matter where in the world you go. Cultural differences can be bridges, not barriers. When you first move to a new country, cultural differences can feel overwhelming, sometimes even frustrating. But over time you realize they aren't obstacles at all. They are opportunities to learn, to connect, and to grow in ways you never expected. The biggest lesson is no matter where we come from, we share so much at our core. The traditions may be different, the customs unfamiliar, but at the end of the day, people everywhere want the same things: connection, belonging, and a good life. Once you start seeing differences as bridges instead of barriers, the world opens up in the most incredible way. You don't just find yourself, you define yourself. So many quotes talk about finding yourself, but here's the truth. Living in different cultures doesn't just help you find yourself. It forces you to define yourself. When you step outside of everything familiar, your language, traditions, social norms, you start to see which part of you are true and which ones were just shaped by your surroundings. Are you naturally this way, or was it just how you were raised? Do you actually believe in certain customs, or did you just follow them because that's what everyone around you did? Living in different cultures gave me a clearer mirror. I realized that some parts of me will stay the same no matter where I go, while others shifted and evolved. And that's the beauty of it. You are not just discovering yourself, you are actively shaping who you want to be. The power of humility. Moving to a new country often means starting from zero. New language, new customs, new everything. And let's be honest, it can be humbling at times. When I moved to Cancun at the beginning, not knowing how to say something substantial felt frustrating. I'd stumble over words, mispronounce things, or completely blank out in conversations. But over time, I learned that humility is part of the process. Instead of feeling embarrassed, I got creative. Hand gestures, facial expressions, even drawing things on a napkin if needed. And guess what? People appreciate the effort. They don't expect you to be perfect. They just appreciate that you are trying. Learning to embrace the unknown with patience and a sense of humor not only makes the process easier, it makes you more open, more adaptable, and a lot more connected to the world around you. That's it for today, guys. Thanks for staying with me. If you've ever lived in a different culture, I'd love to hear about your experience. What was the biggest lesson you learned? What surprised you the most? Let me know in the comments. I'm really curious to read your stories.